Hey there, YouTubes. As you can see, I'm pretty skinny. Part of this is genetics. Part of this is because I work a physically intense job. But part of this is an eating disorder. Eating disorders are flat out a form of self-harm. Whether you are on the lower end of the scale where you stop eating, or whether you're on the high end of the scale where you're eating too much, both ways you're hurting your body. And low end of the scale and high end of the scale, in some cases, have some things in common. They're about control. Or you feel like you can't control them. You just do them. Or they are a way to deal with depression, anxiety, frustrations. But basically, they're a form of self-harm. Not eating a regular diet, not being conscious of what you're eating, and eating a diet that's kind of messed up because you're turning to it for comfort, or you're turning away from food because you can't control anything else in your life, so you're going to control what you eat. That's a form of self-harm. So, my story. I would say it started about when I was 14. One of my family members had died. Stuff was already starting with my sibling. I wasn't getting very good grades in school, and I couldn't figure out why I had strange attractions to other girls. I felt like my life was spinning out of control, and so I controlled the one thing I could: how much I ate. I would ask for smaller portions at dinner. I would sneak out the door without eating breakfast. And about the only time I really felt like eating was when I was around my friends at lunchtime. So, I mean, if you look at that, that's depression. And I mean, I've had depression since I was a kid. I flat out admit it. Though I've never been clinically diagnosed. Time went by, junior year of high school came, and my eating disorder basically went away. I was really active in school, my grades were better, I was taking classes I absolutely loved. And I had a group of friends that I could pretty much turn to. But then, and like a lot of the things I've been thinking about, like my attractions to other girls, I just kind of pushed away, or I got them out by writing. But then senior year of high school came, I started online dating a girl, and I felt that Yahweh was punishing me, started punishing me. I completely lost my appetite. I had no desire to eat. I had no feeling of my stomach being empty. And it got so bad to the point where, like, I would be walking in the halls and it felt like my knee joints were just grinding on each other. Like, it didn't feel like there was any padding in between my bones. I got to a point where my hands would be cold constantly. I got to the point where I would shiver a lot, just because I was cold, because I didn't have very much body fat. I also had issues with my ribs hurting when I was at work, when I was doing my job, which was kind of physically intense. And naturally frustrations because I couldn't focus, because my brain didn't have any calories to use to burn to focus with. But that went away. And by my freshman year of college, I learned my triggers, and I realized, specifically because I was paying so much to go to school, if I don't focus, I'm screwed. So I learned that, okay, I'm going to have a granola bar in my book bag, and I'm going to nibble on that, and I'm going to eat a full lunch during the day. And it got better. It practically went away. But the thing is that with anorexia, occasionally, if you don't watch yourself, you have flare-ups. And I would think that the same thing's true for the opposite end of the scale, where you're eating too much. Given I was never clinically diagnosed with an eating disorder, but pretty much I've had one. And I will admit, occasionally I do have flare-ups. There will be a couple of days here and there where I don't eat. or a couple of times a year there will be times that I don't eat and I slip, and I get to a point where I am really moody and I just don't feel right. My stomach's empty and therefore I don't want to eat anymore because it gets upset. And I fear that, oh, dude, I'm going to throw up if I eat something, so I probably shouldn't eat. But then the other part of my brain clicks on and says, okay, but that's probably because you haven't eaten, so you need to eat something gentle, have some cereal or something. My eating disorder was a form of self-harm, flat out. At one point, I didn't want to be alive, so I tried to slowly kill myself by not eating. Thankfully, a lot of that went away as I grew up more, and especially when I moved into a living arrangement where I was at college. I had a support network. I had close friends who could understand what it was like to be gay. I had close friends who I could talk to. I had that support network, and I still do. My eating disorder was definitely an expression of my depression. Just like, for me, my other very bad behavior, which I talked about in a previous video, was another expression of my depression. But you know what? There is hope. Like with other forms of self-harm, you gotta learn your triggers. If you learn your trigger, you can start to anticipate when you might start to slip or when you might have a flare-up. So you learn your triggers. If you have a lower end of the scale eating disorder, if you are more like anorexic rather than eating too much, you learn, you anticipate, you keep a granola bar or something on you just so that your stomach can keep going, can keep working. If you're on the higher end of the scale, where you're eating a little too much, you also learn. You learn your triggers. And you realize you can learn about your behaviors. You learn about your habits on either end of the scale. And by learning those habits and learning your triggers, you can work around those negative behaviors so that you're in more of a positive state, and that positivity will keep on rolling. It is hard. Every now and then I do slip up. Like I noted, there are days when I just don't eat, or I'll forget to eat because I get so busy with life, and my stomach gets all gurgly and doesn't feel right. But then I have to hit myself in the head or something and remember, okay, I need to eat now so I can eat later, so I will not be bitchy. If you have an eating disorder out there, I highly encourage you to seek help. I will link below a website that gives basics of eating disorders and basic information, and I hope that you find it helpful. You know, it does get better. Learn your triggers, learn your behavior, learn to work with it, learn to conquer it. It does get better. Peace out, YouTubes.